Hello, and thanks for watching another edition of ARFCOM News. Today I want to tell you about the slow and inevitable decline of the NRA, Nancy Pelosi's promise to fine House members $5 grand if they bypass metal detectors, and how major airlines refused to check firearms on flights into the Capitol wasteland, plus lots more. But before we can get started, I want to tell you about the fine, barrel-aged, single malt night vision products offered to you by our friends at TNVC.com, just like Mom used to make. If you like seeing stuff more than not seeing stuff, take a look at our sponsor, TNVC.com, your source for quality night vision gear to make you the bump in the night. Remember I recently reported on how the Bad Touch said he plans to defeat the NRA? Well, looky here, the NRA seems to have defeated themselves. You may have heard the NRA is filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection and planning to move to Texas from New York, where they have been headquartered since 1871.
I declare bankruptcy!
Folks, this has been a long time coming and should be no surprise to literally anyone. We've been hearing a steady trickle of reports regarding gross corruption and mismanagement in the NRA for years. Now the NRA has filed for bankruptcy protection and plans to move to Texas. The more cynical among you might view this like a petulant child who loses at a game, stamping his way home along with the ball that everyone was playing with. You could argue the only reason for the bankruptcy and the move is to avoid the lawsuit filed by New York Attorney General Letitia James, which alleges senior NRA leadership was more interested in maintaining an opulent lifestyle than serving the interests of its members. You could even point out there hasn't been the slightest hint of remorse or indication from leadership they intend to change anything at all. But I got nothing. Those are actually all excellent points. Honestly, there is no reason to expect the NRA will change anything until they replace all their senior leadership. I want the NRA to be our 2A super dreadnought, as powerful and terrifying as the authoritarian control freaks think it is. But if it ever was such a thing, it hasn't been so in decades. The NRA still runs some of the best educational programs in the country, and the ILA is putting in work in the courts, but there are many other organizations fighting harder for our rights, in my less than humble opinion. The bourgeoisie absolutely despise being treated as if they were merely common sans-culottes, which is why many Congress critters recoiled at the horror of passing through the new metal detectors in DC along with the commoners. They are accustomed to simply bypassing security by showing their House member pin, but Sith Lord Nancy Pelosi has announced she intends to fine House members $5 grand if they bypass her new metal detectors. You may recall we recently reported about Congress Lady Boebert promising to carry at the Capitol, and it sounds like she made good on her promise because several reporters say she set off a metal detector and pressed on like a boss. So far as I can tell, weapons have been prohibited in the House chamber since the dawn of time, but members are allowed to carry elsewhere on the Capitol grounds. It's one of those numerous rules which the rule makers don't feel really compelled to follow, though, because until recently no one bothered to check them. Many politicrators appear shaken by the new rule, though. Representative Peter Meyer says he is purchasing body armor, and many of his colleagues are looking into doing the same. He says they're also making arrangements for armed security details. Believe it or not, I don't necessarily see this as a bad thing. No, slow down there, Turbo. I'm not saying I support gun-free zones. Although, as gun-free zones go, the only ones that should have any legitimacy at all are those which are enforced with competent screening and entry control, and where an armed security force can ensure my safety. No, the reason I view this as not entirely bad is I am opposed to some animals being treated more equally than others. For far too long, we have sent men and women to Coruscant expecting them to fight for our rights, and the most they can manage is to put up some token resistance to each new, creeping, incrementalist infringement. They could have spent their time fighting to ensure the right of all people to be armed is recognized throughout the land, but they didn't. Only a tiny number of pro-gun bills have ever been introduced, and in the last 4 years, none of them made it out of committee, even when the Republicans controlled both houses and the Oval Office. Or, hell, maybe there was, but I am a man.
I'm a man, but I can change.
Now, to be clear, I am absolutely not disparaging Boebert or anyone else for carrying a firearm. I'm just happy all those politicians who did nothing to advance our gun rights suddenly have a moment where they feel like the rest of us, even if it is a fleeting moment. Here's a question. Is corporate oppression any better than government oppression? Does it matter if the boot on your neck has a Nike swoosh or an NSN printed on it? The authority of corporations to do as they please flows from the idea that corporations are composed of individuals, and those individuals have rights. But doesn't one person's rights stop where another's begin? This isn't a legal question so much as a moral one. I don't have the right to be armed because the Constitution gives it to me. I have the right to be armed because I am human, and my life is precious, and it is worth defending. Now, the theory is, if a corporation infringes on my natural human rights, I can simply choose to do business with another corporation. But what if they all conspire together to deny my rights? That's what all the major airlines did when they refused to allow declared firearms in checked bags on flights bound for DC in preparation for Stranger Danger's inauguration. Never mind, many of those passengers may live in the DC area and had flown out before the rule change. How are they going to get their guns back? Never mind, they may have booked a flight to DC months ago for a hunting trip in Virginia or other neighboring states. Never mind, DC is one of the filthiest, most dangerous cities in the nation, and it is both perfectly legal, ding, and common sense to carry a firearm while visiting. Never mind that anyone who was seeking to do harm could easily circumvent the policy by simply shipping the gun to themselves at their hotel, regardless of FedEx or UPS's policy on shipping guns. And there's nothing that would actually stop someone from packing a gun in a box and shipping it without telling the carrier what's inside. As ineffectual as this policy is to stop bad actors, it is equally unjustifiably disruptive to normal people. It's also another step in a disturbing trend. Whether it is deplatforming dissenting views or infringing your right to be armed, corporate oppression is no better than government oppression. If you've never heard of The Trace, don't feel bad. It's the propaganda arm of oligarch Michael Bloomberg's gun control machine, and it probably has more writers than readers. But they give cover to activist journalists who write for some of the legacy outlets. While modern journalists give short shrift to anything resembling ethics, if they were to boldly proclaim confiscationist opinions, it would be unseemly. Instead, they can cite opinions published in The Trace as though it were a real paper, and most readers just don't know any better. The Trace has made some waves in the gun socials in the last few days by sending out an email to industry peeps which hints they are developing a hit piece against 2A influencers. The email implies 2A influencers are responsible for the mob in DC by spreading conspiracy theories, and asks whether the company to which the email is addressed has reevaluated their relationship with the listed creators. They generously gave 12 whole hours for the industry representatives to respond. I confidently predict the finished piece will go something like this. Gun safety expert Shannon Watts expressed concerns that unchecked hate speech in the 2A community played a pivotal role in the seditious events in Washington. We wanted to know whether gun industry sponsors had any reservations about supporting such problematic figures, but they refused to comment. Anyone want to bet a beer I'm close? Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they would gleefully use any poorly considered statement issued in haste if they were to get so lucky, but I think the go-to move for hacks like this is to develop an opinionated question and pretend as though they attempted to ask, but not really bother to afford anyone the time to respond thoughtfully except for their chosen experts. Industry news. Magpul never fails to introduce a slew of rad new products at SHOT, but unfortunately they won't have the chance this year. That didn't stop them from making the rad new products though. There's too much cool stuff to list here, but here are a few of the things I'm most excited about. The MBus 3 is an improved folding backup iron sight which allows you to adjust elevation on the front sight without a tool. The PMag 1030 is a 10-round magazine which looks like a standard capacity PMag, so those mean girls won't make fun of you at the range for rocking a mag that doesn't dangle much. The D50 is a 50-round Glockazine drum intended to fit anything which accepts G17 mags. And do they take Glock mags? And do these take Glock mags?
And yes, it will work with the Glock mag, so you don't even have to
You heard
ask.
I was coming. They're even introducing a new line of sunglasses. Maybe I'm a dork, but I kind of want because obviously they'll make me a better shot. The thing I'm really excited about though is the FDC-9. In a simpler time, before Harambe, before the LHC opened a portal to the Hitlerverse and everything started to go all wonky, Magpul broke the internet by showing off a fold-em-up Glockish thingy they called the FMG-9 at SHOT 2008. People went absolutely bonkers over it, but from the beginning, Magpul admitted they had no plans to produce it commercially, and it never came to market despite what appeared to be overwhelming demand. Maybe they got sick of hearing us tell them how much we wanted it to be real.
If you believe, wherever you are, clap your hands and she'll hear you.
Because they're promising to make it now, both as a carbine, which would require a tack stamp as a short barrel rifle, and as a pistol with a brace. I know this may not be the most practical defense tool ever, but I don't care. It is all the cool, and I'm sure I can invent some rational justification for needing to have at least one. Shut up and take my caps. Well, friends, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy watching these things because I sure like making them for you. If you want to help us keep bringing you banger content like this, please support the folks who support us. Not only does TNVC.com carry a wide selection of low-carb, fat-free, non-GMO night vision products, they also have mounts, lights, and all sorts of other gear to make you the bump in the night. And if you want to support us more directly, you can buy fly shirts like this one in our Teespring store. Or if you'd like to try your luck and see if you can win your choice of rad shirt from our Teespring store, post a comment containing the phrase, "Welcome to the party, pal," in the YouTube comments, and I will arbitrarily and unilaterally choose the best one. I love you.